Good morning, everyone. Greetings. My name is Blair. I am an MC for the FIRST Robotics Competition. Work for FIRST. I get to work with many of you at events around the world. It's a pleasure to have you here so early in the morning. But free food talks, doesn't it? And it's maybe a little quiet hour before you have to work with the students the rest of the day, so soak that up, enjoy that. You're going to hear thanks many times this morning, but we can't say it enough. We appreciate everything all the coaches and mentors do for FIRST, so thank you, thank you, thank you. I will say it, and a number of our speakers will say it as well. But behind all of that is, well, we appreciate it, but we realize that you have busy lives, that you give big parts of your lives to FIRST. But as Woody just said backstage, succession planning is not a dirty word. So this morning, we're going to maybe ask you to think about ways of growing FIRST. Can't grow without more mentors, but also thinking about when it's your exit time, what is your exit strategy? You are working with some of the future mentors of FIRST right now, so you are grooming them, and you'll hear a little bit about that this morning as well. So we've got a few speakers. We know that there's a deadline. We've got matches going on around the campus. So eat up, but we're going to sort of talk while you eat, and it's my pleasure to introduce the man who he is responsible for thousands and thousands and thousands of volunteers, and many of them are sitting in this room right now because our mentors and our coaches help volunteer at many events. We know that as well. Please welcome the FIRST Volunteer Resources Department Manager, Dennis Howland. Dennis.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for being here this morning. I'd also like to thank Booz Allen Hamilton for being our host this morning, for having you all here. You know, as Blair said, I'm the Volunteer Resources Manager at FIRST, and whenever I get a chance, I always say whenever I get a chance to stand in front of 10 or more volunteers, I like to get up and say a few words about how important volunteers are. And so I guess you guys, this group meets the criteria. You know, we have over 90,000 mentors and coaches that work for FIRST, and they give us 11 million hours of their time every single year. That's huge. You folks are the most important ingredient in what FIRST does for kids. You know, we're very proud. Our scholarship schools, we've got $25 million worth of scholarships available because schools and universities, they understand what kind of an experience that FIRST kids have when they're in a FIRST program. Our sponsors recognize that as well. They sponsor FIRST because they believe in our mission, but they also know that sometime in the future, our FIRST kids may go to them for a job, and they know what kind of experience they've had because they've been on a FIRST team. They know what kind of values they have. They know the different types of things they've learned that maybe they don't learn on a sports team. So you guys make that happen for us. I can't even tell you how important it is for all the mentors and coaches and all the different situations that you guys come up against with our FIRST kids. Our FIRST kids are really what we should be the most proud about. And you are the folks that make that happen for us. FIRST is very proud of all its volunteers. We're very proud of all the hours that you give us, all the time, all the money, all the gracious professionalism. And we can't thank you enough. So I, as the Volunteer Resources Manager, I don't get a chance to talk to mentors and coaches. It's my pleasure to be up here to talk to you this morning. And all I want to say is thank you. I just want to say thank you for all you do for FIRST. Thank you for being the folks that make our kids what they are, and for just creating and following the mission of the organization, which is to create innovators. You guys are at the ground level on all that. So we thank you very, very much. From the 175 people back in Manchester, New Hampshire, we couldn't do it without you, and we thank you for doing what you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Our next speaker represents a company that is a strategic partner at FIRST. It's also sponsoring this breakfast. But Booz Allen Hamilton started, supporting us years ago in the DC area, and their sponsorship has grown and grown and grown. And just like their company has, they have 25,000 employees. It's a 100-year-old company. Please welcome from Booz Allen Hamilton, Principal Andy Lynn.
Good morning. I thought the best way to introduce you to Booz Allen, if you haven't heard of us, is by introducing you to a few special people that are here. Just a couple of our first members, Justin Manzo, Zach Kahn, and Victor Oryakov. These are only 3 of more than 100 employees who mentored the 72 teams this season, many of which are here today. We've been supporting First mentors and their teams since 2008. Booz Allen backs up our mentoring with team sponsorship grants and the food that you've got in front of you. We've been supporting, our employees are encouraged to mentor across all 4 First programs. Booz Allen's a 102-year-old company, but I like to think of it as 102 one-year startups with a heavy emphasis on STEM fields of study. This sense of exploration and research gives us all a greater sense of purpose. First mentors contribute technical, collaborative, and teamwork skills and talents to the workplace. You can be confident that what you may view as volunteerism is really professional experience. Sharing your first experience with your managers may lead to even more support for First. You are teaching these kids important professional and life skills, people skills that will make all the difference in their lives. We hope you'll consider joining our team, where you can combine your passion for First and have a meaningful career, but we'd also love to talk to your kids and teams and alumni. You are on the front lines of this important program, and we appreciate all that you do to teach and inspire the kids who need you, because we need you to be doing what you're doing. So thank you very, very much. Have a great day.
Our next speaker is it's hard to describe her. She's many things. She wears many hats, and she bundles up all this energy and somehow contains it in a human form. But I'm not sure if she is human. She's an FLL coach. She's a First volunteer. She's a First ambassador. She's a civil engineer. She owns her own company. She is a whirlwind of energy. Please welcome Nicole Attawale.
Good morning. Now, wait a minute. We can do better than that, because I have literally sat where you sat. I know it's early, but you have oranges and bananas and sugar. So let's give another hand to all of us for being here today. This is an exciting day. There we go. So I'm here to talk about the theme of inspiring that next generation of mentors. And I'm so excited because I have been allowed to be able to do that. I don't know, some of you who were here last year may have heard me talk about a book, Seed Folks, by Paul Fleischman. If you've never read it, read it, and it'll make sense after I finish talking. When I was a little girl, my family worshiped every week together, but we didn't just go to our house of worship and listen to some words and sometimes fall asleep. But my father actually sat on the board. When I became an adult, I sat on the board of that same church for several years. When I was a little girl, my father was on the board of a social service agency for orphan and troubled youth. When I became an adult, I sat on that same board. When my mother was in college, she joined a sorority, which at the time was only 50 years old. It is now over 100 years old. My mother has served for over 50 years. I've served for over nearly 25 years. Nearly, don't tell our sorors that, Danielle, almost there. And my daughter has now served for 2 years. Do you see a pattern? The way we inspire that next group of mentors is to teach them when they're young. I don't know anything but service. 3 of my 4 children have been on an FLL and or FRC team. My husband is an FRC judge. I have coached FLL, junior FLL, and I've judged at the FRC and FTC levels. I'm sorry, junior First Lego League, First Lego League, First Tech Challenge, and First Robotics Competition. And All 4 of my children have also volunteered. You see, it's not just enough to go to a competition or sit and listen, but you must give of your time, and we must start early. So what we need to do is make sure that our children understand our relationships. Bring them with you to your competitions. Help them understand what it takes to make things work and why volunteerism is important. So that when they're adults, like my children, they won't know anything different. Make this as a part of their lives. Help them build relationships that they can take on into the future. I'm proud, as I said, not only is my oldest daughter a member of my sorority, but I'm also a member of the National Society of Black Engineers, and my second daughter was installed as the vice president of her collegiate chapter just 2 nights ago. So again, if you want to inspire that next generation, and if we want to be first in inspiring others, bring your children in, show them what volunteerism is, and show them that it is the best way to have fun. Thank you, everybody.
Our next speaker is, well, he walks both sides of the road as well. He's a mentor on a team, has been for a long time, and we also use him at first as an advisor for many, many years, as a voice of reason sometimes in a very heated room. He's got a title that's out of this world, Program Executive for Solar System Space Exploration for NASA. Please welcome Dave Lavery.
Wow, anybody that knows me has a really hard time believing that description of me as the voice of reason. You're here at championships. Your long annual nightmare is almost over. You get to finish up here another 38 hours or so, and then you get to go home and kick back and relax, and for 8 months do absolutely nothing until build season starts again. And just have a good time and just not think about any of this stuff. You don't do that? All right, so look, we're all family here. Doors are closed, the students aren't around. Let's face it, first lies to us. From the very beginning, and I remember the very first time I went through it, standing in the little room up in New Hampshire at the time where we all gathered for kickoff, and looking up at the stage and seeing Dean and Woody and hearing both of them say, "It's only 6 weeks." If I knew then what I knew now, I'd punch both of them. Look, the reality is, you guys know, this goes on all year long. This becomes a lifetime commitment, and not just for that 1 year period, but it really does become a lifetime commitment. I've used the line before, first is worse than the freaking mafia. Once you get in, you don't get out. But I actually realized that it's actually a little bit more than that. It's actually much more like the military. One of the things about the military is, when you go to a new assignment in the military, the first thing that you start doing is you immediately start training your replacement. For when you move on, you have the person who's going to follow in your footsteps for that assignment already basically selected, and you spend your entire time training them to do the job that you're doing now as you were trained by the person before you. First is like that, except you come in, you identify your replacements, your new mentors, you bring them in, you train them, but you don't get to move on. So one of the things you need to think about is, really, honestly, where do the new mentors come from? Part of your responsibility, both for the sake of your team and for your own sanity, is to help share the load within your team and help bring in new mentors into the program. And where are you going to get them from? There's a lot of different places, a lot of them are sort of obvious, but some of them maybe not so much. In the time that I've been working with my team, we've brought in mentors from all sorts of different sources. One of the first ones is sort of interesting. It's your neighborhood. What generally tends to happen is that your neighbors will see there are cars parked in your driveway until all hours of the night, every day of the week, and yours is generally the first driveway to be shoveled out when it snows, not because you're trying to get out, but because team members are trying to get in. And they come and they ask, why? What's going on? What's happening? And that's actually how I recruited 3 of the people from my neighborhood. I basically said, come on over and see. Watch what we do. And they did, and they came over to my shop in my house where we were working on part of the robot at the time and got really excited and enthralled. And now 2 of those 3 have actually gone off and spawned FTC teams of their own that they've been creating. So that's one mechanism. Work, your job. You hopefully get to be one of the few people who gets to wear team t-shirts at work as your normal dress and attire, and your explanation is quite simple. I am doing my official job function, and yes, I have an appointment with the NASA administrator tonight, but I'm wearing my team t-shirt to the meeting. And you get away with it. And that tends to generate a lot of questions and opportunities to bring in new folks as well. Your family. One of my greatest points of pride is my son, who was on my team for his time in high school, and actually started before that, went off to Drexel University and started working with his own team and mentoring 1712 Dogma. And if anybody from 1712 is here, you're in trouble because your first match is 8 o'clock and you better be across the street. But one of the greatest joys that I had is going and talking to Sean's team, and when I go and I see his team, I'm used to walking around the pits and being recognized, but the way I'm greeted there is unlike anywhere else. I'm not Mr. Lavery or Dave. I get greeted as, hi, Mr. Sean's dad. And the fact that he has that impact on his team, I think, is pretty cool. And you have an opportunity to share that. Public outreach events. My team goes to an event every year called Hernan Festival. We get 90,000 people over a 3-day weekend that come through, and we have been able to, as part of this entire festival, have been able to secure a spot in the middle of the entire event for our first team. And we basically show off the robot and the team, and every single year we get people just from the public who come by and they see us and they sign up. And we actually never thought of that as a recruiting event. We just thought it was a neat little outreach event to show people what we do, but we've been able to snag new mentors every single year because of that, and it's a great opportunity. But perhaps the most effective one we've ever had for identifying and recruiting new members have been bribes. Usually in the form of pizza. We actually have a team button that we incorporated, that incorporates part of our fundamental team motto, came for the pizza, stayed for the robots. It's true. We feed you on your first meeting. Again, we learn from first. We lie to you. We make you think that's going to happen all the time. It's not. It's worse than a drug dealer. We give you that first taste. And then we make you pay for your own pizza after that. But the point is that there are all sorts of resources that you're going to get to identify and help bring in the mentors from your team, or for your team in the future, and take advantage of all of them. I got involved because of a very simple connection. 21 years ago, there were 3 kids in my neighborhood who happened to see a 3-minute piece on 2020 about FIRST. They came down the street and talked to me and my next door neighbor, Dave Miller, at the time, and they said to both of us, hey, we know that you guys do stuff for NASA with robots and space and stuff. Would you guys help us? We saw this thing about this robot competition. We think it'd be kind of cool. Would you help us work on it? We didn't know any better, so we said yes. 21 years later, those kids are gone, and Dave Miller and I are still both doing this. But the neat thing that happened in that process, and the thing that you can take to the mentors that you will be recruiting when they ask, why should I do this? What's the value? What's the payback? In effect, what do I get out of this? Is the experiences that you will get from that process, and you guys know this more than anyone, the experiences you will get from that process last a lifetime. Actually, again, being honest about it, it lasts more than a lifetime. I'm now at the point, and I actually, when I first had this as a conscious thought in my head, it scared the crap out of me. I'm at the point now where the first students from my very first year on the team are now hitting their 40s, and I still talk to them. Those original 3 that started my team 22 years ago now, I'm still friends with, and I still talk with. Amy Forrestel, for example, is a professor of astronomy up at SUNY in New Paltz right now, and when my second son went up to Rensselaer to go to school, we stop in to see Amy every time we drive back and forth. that sort of a connection and that sort of an ability to affect your students and have an impact on them is something that is beyond value, beyond measure. Because Amy and Trey and Lena, the three original students, when I talked to them about what their high school memories were like and what they got out of the process, to this day, 22 years later, they all still say the thing that they remember most about high school and the people they associate with 20 years later that they met in high school are the team members and the mentors that they got to know as part of that process. It wasn't their track meet, it wasn't a certain class, it wasn't sitting at lunch or anything else. It's what they got out of the team, because for the first time in their life, they were able to interact with an adult outside of the parent-teacher or student-pupil relationship. And that had an impact on them that was more valuable than anything that they could have been paid. So when you start recruiting your new mentors and they ask, why should I do this? That's the message that we hope will get through to them and help them understand how they're going to affect the next generation and the generation after that. Thank you all for everything that you do.
All right, so I stretched it a little bit. Voice of reason. What was I thinking? The voice of honesty, yes. Thanks, Dave. Our next speaker, well, he's a mentor to all of us. He was a mentor. Many of you don't know this, but our next speaker was the original MC at First. So all the MCs you see in every single program, that model was made by Woody. Woody started MCing his competition at MIT. He took that, brought it to First. He was the original MC. He was my mentor as an MC way back when in 1998. And every MC you see since then models that behavior after Woody. And we hope that same modeling of behavior is what you're doing as well. He is the voice of reason at First. He's the voice of honesty. He's also the spirit and the essence of First. Please welcome First Distinguished Advisor, Dr. Woody Flowers.
Good morning. You're very kind. I am humbled to be speaking after such experienced mentors, because I have a confession. I've never been a First mentor. So I have to rely on other experience, and I started working with students in creative design exercises, competitions in 1970. So I have to try to use my roughly 40 years of experience there to try to talk to you guys about your experience in First. So I want to talk about that at two different levels. And I just want to explain a little bit about why I love you so much. It's really important that you're doing what you do. And I know that you've heard that from lots of people, but I think that you are participating in what I call true education. And I think training is going to happen somewhere else. Human-to-human interaction is going to be the major core of true education, and I think you guys are being the vehicle for that. So at a very abstract level, I think one of the problems we faced is that we humans have created an environment which is evolving much faster than our brain. I think we have a genetic hangover. We still have some substantial chunks of Neanderthal brain. One of the examples is tribal behavior. Tribal behavior is very important to bring humans to where we are now. So the good news is that charitable behavior has been rewarded by evolution and it works. The bad news, there's some really nasty stuff in tribalism, and it's being expressed in this country and all over the world right now in some very negative ways. You know, it was true that the meanest dude in the tribe got the most food and sex. We still have that rattling around. Bullying on the internet, sexual assault, a whole bunch of things that are there because the brain kept them. I believe that our intellect is the only tool we have to sort the good tribal stuff from the bad tribal stuff. And I think what you guys are doing gives young people a vehicle to sort that out. I don't think that you can tell them that they must do that, or I could tell them that they must do that. They must do something that allows them to feel what it's like to have some of those emotional endorphins that they get when they go home and put their head on the pillow and think, you know, that feels kind of nice. I think I'll do some of that. And I get the impression that kids in first really do feel it, and they're not acting. They're doing something that they've really decided that they want to do. So I think at a very abstract level, you're really making a big impact on young lives. At a more practical level, a lot of first stuff came from experiences at MIT in our design sequence in mechanical engineering. The first course, 270 or now 2007, was kind of the archetype for FRC. We have a second course that is where the problem too big, time too short, team too large, budget too small came from, where students are put in this very intense situation and they have to work together to make it happen. One of the things that I think makes FIRST challenging is that it doesn't fit the model that I think is the right model for getting people to learn how to innovate and design things. Because at MIT we were able to give the students the opportunity, the luxury of working alone in their first competition. Each student got a kit. They got to make all the decisions by themselves. They built the thing, and then they saw what happened when it competed with things built by 200 other students. Naive designers working on a new problem probably have benefit from the luxury of working alone and making their own decisions. They find out about themselves as a designer. Then when you go join a team and face this much more complex thing of working with other people and integrating their thoughts, I think you're in a better position to do that because you know yourself really well. So a bit of advice that you might consider is give your team an opportunity that I'm sure you can fashion to have them learn about themselves as the designers at the beginning, and it may help the way they integrate into a team. This morning, I read, while I was having coffee, I read Paul Krugman's op-ed piece in the New York Times and David Brooks' op-ed piece in the New York Times. They are somewhat polar opposites. Krugman is a liberal economist. David Brooks is the kind of token conservative writer for the New York Times, or one of them. They painted pictures that were not particularly nice based on what's happening in our economy and our society right now. Yesterday, is Nacho here? Jose Fernandez, that many of you know as Nacho from Chilean Heart, the team from Santiago, gave Margaret and I a plaque. It was on the desk. So on screen, I read the two op-ed pieces and then turned and read what was on the plaque. The plaque is a poem written by one of the members of the Chilean Heart team. Inspiration from the heart. When your heart is first, amazing things happen. When your focus is giving back, you change people's lives. When you believe in your team, and when more than 30 people become one, you know your dreams can come true. When your laughter, sweat, and tears are in the same place, you know you're going the right way. When you're not afraid to fail, you won't give up without giving yourself another chance. When you work hard, inspiration is the engine of success. Belin Gedade. Wonderful, wonderful poem. The contrast between this representing what you guys are helping FIRST do and what's happening in the world is stark. Thank you for doing what you do. Keep it up.
Thank you, Woody. Just closing, thank you to all our speakers. Thank you to Booz Allen Hamilton. I want to leave you with a little, just a quick quote. It's the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death, and I'm made to wear a kilt. So this is appropriate. All the world's a stage, and all of the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances. And one man or woman in his time plays many parts. Thank you for choosing to play the part of a mentor for First as part of your time on the stage. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming. Have a great championship.